So what's next? This is next. And it's upside down. There we go. A formal petition for redress of grievances. Many of you have already signed that at the table. And tea parties all over the country, in many states, they're signing this, they're reading it out loud, and they're going to send it to Nancy Pelosi's desk next week. The original colonists, they sent Benjamin Franklin and other dignitaries to the king and to Parliament in order to petition their government. And you know what? They were treated with contempt, they were ridiculed, and they were ignored. If our petition ends up in the circular file without any consideration whatsoever, it will only prove what many of us already know, that we don't live in a republic anymore, and we don't even live in a democracy. We are living under an authoritarian oligarchy that looks on us as mere serfs in their kingdom.
That's the truth.
They have broken our contract, the Constitution. They have continually broken our contract for decades, if not the last century. And because they have broken our contract, we are not under obligation any longer to recognize illegitimate authority. That's the next step. After petition comes civil disobedience, refusing to acquiesce to their every little whim that they may come up with as they sit high in Mount Olympus in Washington. Let me ask you this. How many of you, when you received your census form, filled it out only with that little box that says, this is how many people live here, and sent it back, and didn't answer any of the other ridiculous questions? How many? Wonderful, that's the first step. That's probably the first time many of us have received a government request and said no. Imagine that. No. It's time we started saying no a whole lot more. A whole lot more. The colonists, they refused to buy goods from England, and it culminated in that first great Tea Party. It's time that we start complying with every wish that comes out of Washington. There are two ways to go about this. To starve the beast. The first way is the way of the characters of Atlas Shrugged. How many of you have read Atlas Shrugged? If you have not read it yet, please get a hold of a copy. I know it's a big book, but it is well worth the read. Characters in Atlas Shrugged basically dropped out. This is my suggestion here as the first method. Sell your house, sell your business, put your money where the government cannot get a hold of it, and do what's necessary to put food on the table and a roof over your head until what's coming passes. And we'll get to what's coming in a second. The second way that we starve the beast is to do what resistance movements throughout history have done, including our own. And that is the development of an underground economy. We heard earlier about bartering. Work with each other as fellow patriots. And stop complying with everything the government wants us to do. You know what? If they pass comprehensive immigration reform and they pass the idea of a national ID card, refuse to get it. Don't submit. And don't be afraid to do business and hire people, your fellow patriots, without it. Healthcare employees. Stop taking government insurance. Go back to the way healthcare used to be before the lawyers, the insurance companies, and the government got involved and made it the mess that it is today. Take your children out of those government indoctrination centers that we call schools, so they stop singing hymns to our great leader. Businesses, stop acting as tax collectors. Saw a sign back there earlier for the VAT. They pass the VAT, they only get the money if we give it to them. And if the government calls you to account, refuse to recognize unconstitutional authority when you see it. Wouldn't it be wonderful if just once one of these CEOs that was brought up in front of Henry Waxman and his committee held up a copy of the Constitution and said, Mr. Waxman, I'm not answering your questions because I can't find where you have the right to ask me these questions in this document. We need to do the same. Now, doing these things will accomplish something very, very important. They will create tightly knit and highly organized communities of patriots. And that is going to be necessary for what's coming. Because when threatened, all totalitarian governments act unpredictably and violently. Don't think it can happen here? How many times have we asked ourselves that question over the last year?
Remember Waco.
Who are the heroes of this administration? Mao, Che, Lenin, murderers, every single one of them. What did one administration official say? The free market's a joke. Political power comes at the point of a gun. This government and this economy is going to fall apart just like it did in the Soviet Union. It's unsustainable. How many times have we heard that in the last year? Unsustainable. Well, it is. And it's coming. And when it comes apart, and all the looters out there are screaming for help from a government that no longer is able to give it. And as Moody said, we test the bonds of our social cohesion. That is the time when we must resist this government's attempts to establish an absolute tyranny over us in response to a crisis that they themselves will have created. That is the time when we may need to exercise those Second Amendment rights as an organized militia of armed citizens necessary for what? A free state. And we can hope and pray that it does not come to that. But we need to consider it and we need to be prepared. Remember the words of George Washington. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. See, we the people are now engaged in a battle of wills with our government.
We win.
We're playing a game of chicken. And the government has pressed down the accelerator.
Hold this one for a minute. I got a good chair.
No.
Every day,
He's almost
they
done.
pass something else that adds another link to the chain. And they're daring us to resist. They're daring us to say no. They're daring us to blink. They're counting on it. They're counting on us to back down. And if we do, if we come this far, and we're scared of the IRS, or we're scared of the immigration people, or we're scared of Obama's civilian force, we can sign ourselves and our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren to perpetual slavery. Because you know what? Ronald Reagan was right. We are the last best hope of mankind for freedom on this earth. There isn't anybody coming from the outside to save us. We the people need to stand up at that point in time like the patriots that founded this country. And we need to shout with one voice, I am not a slave. I am not a slave.
Slavery is illegal. It says so right here.
Yes, it is. They do not own me. They do not own my property. They do not own my liberty. And they do not own my life. They may label me a kook, or an extremist, or a nut, or a terrorist, or a radical. But you know what? They will not call me their slave.
Hoorah!
And I leave you today with the oft-quoted words of Patrick Henry. What is it that you wish? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Again, give me liberty, give me death. Give me liberty or give me death.